The morning rush at Clearwater International Airport was loud, chaotic, and absolutely ordinary, until a single German Shepherd brought the entire terminal to a dead stop. Officer Mark Jensen had just stepped onto the baggage floor when his K9 partner, Rex, suddenly stiffened, ears up, muscles locked, eyes burning with a focus Mark had only seen during life-or-death missions. Before Mark could react, Rex launched himself at a black suitcase sliding across the conveyor belt. Passengers screamed, security alarms chimed, and people scattered in confusion. Some thought it was a bomb. Others thought it was a weapon. But Rex wasn't attacking the suitcase. He was protecting everyone from something inside it. Something alive. Something desperate. No one knew that what Rex sensed that morning would lead to the most shocking discovery the airport had ever seen. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. Clearwater International Airport was buzzing with its usual morning chaos. Rolling suitcases clattered against the polished floors, boarding announcements echoed through the high ceilings, and travelers rushed in every direction with sleepy eyes and half-finished coffees. Officer Mark Jensen walked his routine patrol along the baggage claim, his K9 partner Rex trotting proudly beside him, ears perked, nose scanning every inch of the air. To most people, Rex looked like just another working dog. But Mark knew better. Rex was a legend on the force, sharp, disciplined, and capable of detecting danger long before humans could see it. Mark reached for his radio to check in when Rex suddenly stopped mid-stride. His entire body stiffened. His tail froze, ears shooting forward like arrows. Mark lowered his hand slowly, recognizing the shift instantly. This wasn't curiosity. This wasn't routine. This was instinct. Rex? Mark whispered. The German Shepherd didn't blink. And then, without warning, Rex lunged as he launched himself toward a large black suitcase sliding down the conveyor belt. Passengers gasped and stumbled back as Rex barked with a fierce, urgent intensity. His paws hammered the metal belt, claws scraping as he snapped toward the suitcase, trying to pull it off the moving track. Rex! Heel! Heel! Mark shouted, running after him. But Rex didn't stop. He growled, teeth bared, not in aggression, but in warning. Travelers froze where they stood. Some screamed. Others dropped their bags and sprinted away. A mother pulled her children behind her. A man ducked behind a pillar. Security officers in the distance jolted at the sound of the commotion and began racing toward the scene. Mark finally reached Rex, grabbing his harness and pulling him back with all his strength. But the dog fought against him, desperate to get closer. The suitcase tumbled off the conveyor belt and hit the floor with a thud, spinning slightly before coming to a stop. Rex's hackles stood up like spikes. His barking grew sharper. His eyes, locked on the suitcase, burned with a focus Mark had seen only in moments when lives were at stake. Something inside that suitcase was terribly, terribly wrong. The moment Rex's barks ripped through the terminal, the entire baggage hall shifted from busy chaos to pure panic. Alarm lights on the ceiling began flashing red as the conveyor belt screeched to a sudden halt. Suitcases froze mid-movement, passengers stumbled, and a wave of uneasy whispers spread across the hall like wildfire. Is it a bomb? Oh my God, what's happening? Someone grabbed the kids. People backed away quickly, forming a wide semicircle around the fallen suitcase as if it were a ticking time bomb. Mark tightened his grip on Rex's harness, but the dog was relentless. He was pulling, straining, barking with a desperation Mark hadn't seen in years. This wasn't his standard explosive alert. This was something else. Two TSA officers rushed in first, hands on their utility belts, eyes wide. Officer Jensen, what's going on? Rex reacted. Mark said, breath uneven from the struggle. Strong reaction. Very strong. The officers exchanged alarmed glances. One of them keyed his radio instantly. We need backup at baggage claim C. Possible hazardous item. Repeat, possible hazardous item. Within seconds, uniformed officers began pouring into the area. Passengers were guided back, urged to step behind the emergency line being created with yellow tape. Some resisted, trying to film with their phones until officers sternly pushed them further away. Clear the area. Step back, please. Mark knelt beside Rex, trying to read his behavior. But what he saw only made his stomach twist. Rex wasn't focused on the entire suitcase. He kept nudging one specific corner with his nose, then growling, then whining as if warning them of something inside. "Easy, boy. Easy," Mark murmured, though his own voice trembled. Two bomb squad technicians sprinted into the hall, wearing heavy protective gear. One of them shouted, "Nobody touches that case until we assess it." The tension thickened. Even the air felt heavier, tighter, but Rex didn't care about the warnings that he barked again, sharp, urgent, terrified. Passengers watched with held breaths. Officers waited for instructions. That Mark's pulse hammered in his ears, whatever was inside that suitcase. Rex believed it could cost someone their life. The bomb squad moved with mechanical precision, their heavy boots thudding against the airport floor as they approached the suspicious suitcase. The lead technician, a seasoned officer named Harris, crouched down just a few feet away, scanning the exterior for wires, punctures, or anything unusual. His face was calm, but Mark could see the tension in his jaw. "Everyone maintain distance," Harris ordered. "Do not approach. Do not touch anything." Officers formed a tighter perimeter. Curious passengers peeked from behind pillars and benches, some trembling, others whispering frantically. Mark kept one hand on Rex's harness. Though the dog pushed forward, chest low, nose working furiously, Rex wasn't reacting like he did with chemical or explosive sense. This wasn't the sharp, controlled alert Mark was used to. This was frantic, almost emotional. Harris pressed an ear close to the case, listening for movement or ticking. Another technician slowly extended a telescopic mirror underneath it. The small screen on Harris's wrist displayed the reflection that nothing no wires, no powder residue, no visible triggers. But that didn't calm Rex at all. "Mark," Harris said, glancing up, "your dog's behavior. This isn't a bomb alert. Are you sure he's not reacting to a narcotic?" Mark shook his head firmly. "No. When Rex detects drugs, he sits. He stays still. He's never acted like this before." The second technician approached with a handheld sensor, waving it above the suitcase. The device beeped softly, then stopped. No chemical markers. No radiation. Nothing that matched a known threat. "Strange," the technician murmured. "It's clean." Rex growled again, straining so hard that his paws slid across the slick tile. Harris frowned. "If it's not explosives and it's not drugs, then what the hell set him off?" Before Mark could respond, Rex suddenly whimpered, an alarming, fragile sound that sent chills up Mark's spine. Rex never whimpered. Passengers behind the line gasped at the sound. Harris exchanged a confused look with the other technician. "This makes no sense." Mark crouched beside his dog, voice barely above a whisper. "Buddy, what did you find?" Rex pressed his nose against the same corner of the suitcase. Urgently, desperately, something was inside. Something alive. Rex's behavior was no longer just unusual, it was unsettling. Mark had worked with him for years, through bomb threats, narcotics busts, and emergency evacuations, but he had never seen his partner react like this. Rex wasn't barking in aggression. He wasn't alerting like a trained K9 following protocol. He was pleading. Mark could see it in the dog's eyes, wide, frantic, darting back to him as if begging him to understand something no one else could sense. Harris stepped back warily. "This doesn't add up. Dogs don't react like this unless there's a trigger." "But there is no trigger," the second technician argued, checking his scanner again. "No explosive markers. No chemical signatures. Nothing radioactive. No narcotics. Zero." Rex pawed at the floor, lowering his head and pushing his nose toward the same corner of the suitcase, whining loudly. His tail didn't stand tall like it did during an alert. Instead, it hung low, almost trembling. "What's wrong with him?" One of the TSA officers whispered. Mark knelt down, gripping Rex's collar gently. "Easy, boy. Talk to me." Rex gave a sharp, high-pitched bark, then immediately whined, pacing back and forth beside the case. The crowd murmured nervously. "Why is he acting like that? Maybe there's something dangerous inside." "No, he looks scared." Harris narrowed his eyes. "Dogs don't get scared of bombs." Mark swallowed hard. "He's not scared of the suitcase. He's scared for something inside it." Harris turned to him slowly. "For something?" Rex barked again, but it wasn't the deep, commanding bark of a police dog. It was softer, urgent, heartbreaking. Mark felt the hairs on his neck rise. "He's not warning us away from danger. He's trying to get us to open it." Harris hesitated. We still need clearance. Protocol. Rex suddenly shoved his entire body against the suitcase, nudging the same corner with desperate urgency that Mark's voice dropped to a whisper. He thinks something inside is alive. Harris stared at Rex, then at the suitcase, and for the first time since the incident began, the bomb squad officer looked genuinely afraid, while the bomb squad argued over how to proceed. A loud voice crackled through the airport intercom. Attention! We have located the owner of the black suitcase at baggage claim C. Officers, stand by. Mark lifted his head sharply. Around him, passengers murmured anxiously. Rex pressed closer to the suitcase, still whining, still refusing to move. Moments later, 2 TSA agents escorted an elderly man toward the perimeter. Thin, frail, his steps unsteady. His clothes were wrinkled, his eyes red, as if he hadn't slept in days. When he saw Rex barking at the suitcase, his face went pale. That's my bag, the old man whispered. Harris raised a hand. Sir, we need you to stay back. But the man panicked, clutching the strap of his worn satchel. Please, don't open it. I beg you. His voice wasn't defensive, it was terrified. Mark stepped forward. Sir, do you know what's inside this suitcase? The man shook his head violently. Don't open it, please. You don't understand. Rex growled, not at the man, but at the suitcase, then nudged the same corner again with his snout. Passengers gasped that Harris's eyes narrowed. Why don't you want us to open it? Is it dangerous? No, the man cried. No, it's not dangerous. He clasped his trembling hands together like he was praying. But if you open it here, it could hurt him. Him? Mark exchanged a stunned look with Harris. Rex whimpered again, circling the bag in a protective stance. The old man's voice cracked. Please, he's very weak. I couldn't afford a travel kennel or medical fees. I just needed to get him somewhere safe. The man's knees buckled, and he leaned against a pillar, chest heaving with panic. He won't survive long. He hasn't eaten in 2 days. Please, don't hurt him. A stunned silence fell across the terminal. Passengers stared in disbelief. Harris froze mid-motion. Mark's heartbeat thundered in his ears. Something alive was inside that suitcase, and it was dying. Rex softly nudged the case one more time, almost like a plea. Mark knew they had to open it. But what they would find, no one was prepared for. Harris tightened his gloves and stepped toward the suitcase, his expression shifting from suspicion to urgency. All right, he said firmly. We're opening it. Everyone stand clear, just in case. Officers widened the perimeter. Passengers held their breath. Even the airport announcements seemed to quiet as if the entire terminal sensed the moment. Rex planted himself beside the suitcase, body low, ears pinned forward. His breathing was sharp, anxious. Mark could feel the tension radiating off him like heat. The old man clasped his hands together, whispering something under his breath, maybe a prayer, maybe an apology. Tears trembled in the corners of his eyes. Harris pulled out a specialized lock-breaking tool. You ready? His partner asked. Do it. A metallic crack split through the air as the lock snapped open. Gasps rippled across the crowd. The old man flinched so hard his knees nearly buckled. Rex let out a low, trembling whine. Harris lifted the lid slowly. Carefully. Bracing himself for anything, the lid rose an inch. Then 2. Then 3. Mark leaned in, heart pounding. He'd opened countless suitcases in emergencies before. But something about this moment made his skin crawl with anticipation. A faint smell drifted out. Something warm. Something alive. Something frightened. Rex pushed forward, nudging Mark's arm urgently. Harris froze. His breath hitched. What do you see? Mark whispered. Harris didn't answer right away. He swallowed hard, eyes locked on the contents. Then, very gently, he lifted the lid fully. A collective gasp swept through the terminal. Inside, curled in a shaking ball of matted fur, was a tiny creature. A whimper, so soft it almost disappeared, escaped from the suitcase. The second technician exhaled in shock. Dear God. Rex immediately moved in, nose pressing to the opening, tail low, ears twitching with instinctive compassion. Mark felt his stomach drop. It wasn't a bomb. It wasn't drugs. It wasn't contraband. It was a puppy, barely breathing, barely moving, barely alive. The terminal fell silent. Rex whined again. This time, heartbreakingly soft. The old man crumpled to his knees. What happened next? would stun everyone even more. For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. The world inside the terminal seemed to freeze as Harris gently pushed the lid all the way open, revealing the tiny, trembling life curled inside the suitcase. The puppy was impossibly small, no bigger than Rex's paw, with ribs showing through its thin fur and eyes barely open. Its breaths came in short, weak gasps, each one more fragile than the last. Rex let out a heartbreaking whimper and gently nudged his nose forward as far as Mark's grip allowed, sniffing the tiny bundle with trembling curiosity. His tail stayed low, not in fear, but in sorrow. He understood. He knew. And Mark felt his chest tighten as he watched his partner soften in a way he'd almost never seen. The second bomb technician knelt beside Harris, voice cracking. "Is it alive?" Harris nodded slowly. "Barely." The old man collapsed to his knees, covering his face with both hands as his shoulders shook. "I'm sorry," he sobbed. "I didn't know what else to do." Mark swallowed hard and knelt beside the suitcase, careful not to startle the fragile creature. The puppy lifted its head an inch, eyes glassy and unfocused. Then it let out a tiny cry, so faint, so desperate, that several passengers behind the line gasped, hands flying to their mouths. Rex nudged forward again, whining softly. He didn't bark. He didn't pull. He just lowered his head beside the suitcase, as if telling the little pup, "I'm here. You're not alone anymore." Mark felt something shift inside him. This wasn't a crime scene. This was a rescue. "We need medical attention," Mark said urgently. "Right now." A nearby TSA officer sprinted toward the intercom. "We need the airport veterinarian. Emergency response required at baggage claim C." Harris gently lifted the tiny puppy from the suitcase. The whimper that followed was so fragile it barely reached the air. The pup's body was cold, shivering uncontrollably. Passengers wiped tears from their eyes. A mother held her child close. Even officers who'd seen the worst of humanity looked shaken. Mark turned to the old man. Why was the puppy in there?" The man's chin quivered. "Because if I didn't hide him, he'd be dead already." Rex pressed his nose against the puppy's paw in a soft, protective gesture, and for the first time since the suitcases stopped moving. The airport realized the danger wasn't what they feared. The danger was what this innocent life had already survived. The old man's hands trembled as he sat on a nearby bench, his frail body shaking with every breath. Officers hovered around him, unsure whether to treat him as a suspect or a grieving soul. Rex stayed close to the puppy, pacing anxiously as the airport vet team hurried to set up a temporary medical station on the floor. Mark approached the old man slowly. "Sir, we need to understand what's going on. Why was the puppy in the suitcase?" The man wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I wasn't trying to hurt him," he whispered. "I was trying to save him." Mark exchanged a glance with Harris. "Save him? From who?" The old man swallowed hard, his voice cracking. "From the same people who killed my son." A stunned silence fell around them. The man took a shaky breath. "My son, he was a breeder. A good one. Ethical. Caring. He raised German shepherds, trained them, treated them like family." Tears streamed down his face. "But a gang from our town. They wanted to force him into illegal fighting rings. He refused." He choked on his words, his chest heaving. "They made him pay for it." Mark's jaw tightened. "I'm so sorry." The old man nodded slowly. "After they killed him, they burned his kennel. I found only one survivor." His gaze drifted to the puppy being tended to by the vet team. "That little boy, barely a month old. They broke his leg, starved him, left him to die." Passengers nearby covered their mouths in horror. The old man's voice dropped to a whisper. "I couldn't leave him. I couldn't let them take the last piece of my son." "So you put him in a suitcase?" An officer asked gently. "I had no choice," the old man cried. "I didn't have a kennel. I didn't have money for medical papers. I didn't have anything. I just needed to get him out of that place. Somewhere safe." Rex let out a soft, mournful whine as he pressed his head against the puppy's tiny paw. The old man's eyes filled with gratitude. "Your dog," he knew. He understood before any of you did. Mark looked at Rex, then at the puppy, then back at the old man. For the first time since the chaos began, the truth was clear. This wasn't a crime. It was a desperate attempt to protect a life. The airport vet team worked quickly, laying out supplies on a folded blanket. A tiny oxygen mask, warm towels, for fluids, everything they could gather on such short notice. The puppy lay motionless except for the faint rise and fall of its fragile chest. Its fur was cold, damp, and clinging to its thin skin. Rex hovered protectively over the pup, whining softly as if urging the vets to hurry. Mark had never seen his partner so emotional, so visibly shaken. He knelt beside Rex, placing a steady hand on the dog's back. "It's okay, buddy," Mark whispered. "They're helping him." The lead vet, Dr. Evelyn Clark, carefully lifted the puppy. Heart rate is weak. Blood sugar dangerously low. Severe dehydration. Possible internal injuries. She looked up grimly. "We need to get him to the hospital clinic immediately." The old man wiped his eyes with trembling fingers. Is he going to make it?" Dr. Clark didn't answer right away. Instead, she wrapped the puppy in a warm towel and placed the oxygen mask gently over its snout. The puppy whimpered, the faintest sound, but enough to make Rex perk his ears and lean in. "That's a good sign," Dr. Clark said softly. "He's fighting." 2 officers cleared a path through the terminal as the vet team stood up. "Move back, please." "Let them through." Passengers stepped aside silently. Some placed hands on their hearts. Others wiped tears from their eyes. The chaos from earlier was gone, replaced by a unified, quiet sympathy for the tiny life fighting to survive. Rex moved forward immediately, refusing to leave the puppy's side. Mark had to jog to keep up with him as they followed the vet team through the terminal. Dr. Clark glanced back. "He won't leave him, will he?" Mark shook his head. "No, he won't." As they hurried toward the emergency vehicle outside, the old man struggled to keep pace, tears flowing freely. "Please, save him," he whispered to Dr. Clark. "He's all I have left." "We'll do everything we can," she promised. They reached the vet transport. Dr. Clark climbed inside with the puppy, attaching monitors and checking vitals. Rex tried to jump in after her, but Mark held him back gently. "Rex, wait," he murmured. The dog whined, eyes locked on the little bundle inside. The doors slammed shut. The engine roared to life. And as the vehicle sped toward the clinic, everyone watching knew the next few hours would decide everything. Hours later, Mark sat in the small waiting room outside the airport clinic's emergency unit. Rex lay at his feet, head resting on his paws, eyes fixed on the double doors as if sheer willpower could make them open sooner. The old man sat a few chairs away, hands clasped tightly, whispering prayers under his breath. Every minute felt like an hour. Finally, the doors swung open. Dr. Clark stepped out, removing her gloves with a tired but relieved expression. "All of you," she said softly. "He made it." The old man's breath collapsed into a sob. Mark stood up immediately. Rex jumped to his feet, tail wagging cautiously as he leaned forward. Dr. Clark continued. "He was severely dehydrated, malnourished, and had a minor fracture. But he responded well to fluids, warmth, and oxygen. He's stable now, and he's going to live." Rex barked once, short, soft, full of joy. "Can we see him?" Mark asked. Dr. Clark smiled. "Yes, but one at a time." She led them inside. The tiny puppy lay in a cushioned incubator, wrapped in warm blankets, a cast on one small leg. When he saw Rex approach the glass, his tail gave the faintest, tired wag. Rex pressed his nose gently against the glass. The old man covered his mouth, tears falling freely. "My son, he would have loved to see this." Mark placed a hand on the elderly man's shoulder. "He survived because you cared. You got him this far." The man shook his head weakly. "I can't give him the life he deserves. I have nothing left. No money, no home, no means to care for him." He looked at Rex. "He needs someone strong, someone who understands." Then he turned to Mark. "Someone like you." Mark blinked, stunned. "You want me to take him?" The old man nodded. "You and Rex saved him. He belongs with you." Rex looked up at Mark, ears perked, eyes shining with hope. Mark felt something warm settle in his chest. "Then yes, I'll take him." Dr. Clark smiled. "We'll start the adoption papers." The old man reached into his pocket and handed Mark a folded note. "Give this to him when he's older. It's from my son." Mark nodded solemnly. As the tiny puppy drifted into peaceful sleep, Rex curled beside the incubator, refusing to move. And in that moment, everyone knew Rex hadn't just detected danger that day, that he had detected life and protected a new beginning.